All right, time for the next step. So after I've got the finalized painting refined layer down, before I start adding color and really enhancing those things, what I want to do is fix up the background. Now what I've done is I've changed the background color from that original grayish mid-tone to one that's more accurate to the scene behind the plants. It's this brightish grayish blue, and so everything I paint on top with the leaves is going to be uh, in front of that layer. So, just like before, where we leave the sketch layer on top, what I'm going to do is beneath the Anhinga and all of those layers, I'm going to add another layer, and this one is going to be just for the leaves. So, let's see here. I want to make sure I got this looking right. Okay. So, I'm just going to dive straight in with the color so I can make sure that all of the color looks right from the start. So I want to get something that looks earthy and green. Let's start with some of the darker leaves first. They're going to be darker and somewhat gray. Okay, and I'll just start picking leaves. I'm going to go for some of the leaves that are a little more bold. Not worried about making this perfect. I feel like anytime you do anything digital, the goal shouldn't be perfection. It should be getting it out and finished. Because with digital, we have the benefit of having no mess. So the way that I'm painting right now is a direct kind of style of painting, where I'm applying the color directly onto the space. I'm not doing a gray tone beneath it. When we get to the Anhinga itself, there will be uh, paint application onto uh, what we're looking at, the Anhinga, the gray tone value underneath. And I'm using the sketch layer as a rough guideline. I'm not treating it as essential to follow completely. Whatever I think looks good in the moment, that's what I'm sticking with. just so we get the idea and the feel of different kinds of leaves here. This is only the first process in this particular direct coloring stage. There's lots of different enhancements we can do to liven this picture up. Go ahead and add this in. And you go on over this way. Maybe I'll leave that blank. Create that kind of separation in there. I think that's nice. And for now, I'll color in the branches, but those are going to be colored in differently later. And I don't have to worry about getting any paint on the Anhinga because everything is on a layer behind it. And I'm just going to fill in some of this area over here where the leaves should be a little more dense. I don't want the gaps to feel too even. So if we can get some different color flow happening, I think that'll help the image a bit. Something like that. Now you technically can do something else in the digital format that adds to realism if you so choose. If I wanted, I could take a photograph and import it into this picture and stick it on a layer behind the Anhinga and use that to then pick and choose the shapes of the plants if I want to paint over them. Or I could even just leave it as is and maybe blur it. But that's called photo bashing, where you take a photo and mix it in with a painting or other photos and mishmash them together. All right, and any of the shapes that I want to carve out for the background to get that blue to shine through again, I can always either erase or I could color pick that gray-blue color, and on a different layer on top of it, I could carve out the shapes with my brush. So a couple different ways to go about it. All right, next up, I'm going to pick some warmer greens. This is going to be for the highlights. Okay, let's see how this looks. Let's try it Let's try it over here. I want to be kind of sparse and limited with where I place these highlights. If I put it everywhere, then I might as well have painted the whole thing in the highlight. So just being careful. And I think one thing I'm going to do is this leaf that I have here that's pointing back at the face, I'm definitely going to accentuate this with a light. And we'll bring it back to a tiny point. Like that. Gives us focal direction because the eye is going to be the focal point. There's not going to be as much highlight out this way. Just a little bit here and there. Less on that one. All right, so what do we do when we get to a particular edge that meets another color that's the same value? Usually there'll be some sort of separation. So what you can do, grab a slightly cooler color on here. We could even grab the same color that we had and very carefully lay in the color on the other side of it. Because it overlaps, this creates a 3D effect on top. And we can further that effect by casting a shadow onto the plant behind it. Just like that. All right. The next thing I want to do is get the branches. Now the bigger branches are more on the brownish golden yellow. So, I'm going to come in, paint them. Think about which items I want where. I don't think I had any other big branches in here. I think all the other ones were small. So that makes it fairly easy. And then going along that same idea, we're going to go cooler and color in the backside. Might even go cooler than that. Definitely cooler than that. Maybe it's a warm shadow. Let's try a warm shadow and see if that feels any better. Might be too warm. Let's ease off into the gray. How does that feel? Still not quite right. That's a bit better. So I'll reverse the thinking a little bit. All right. Now go back to that golden worm. Feels a little better overall. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go and grab some cooler greens. Greens that are almost in the blue. And we're going to color in some of the leaves that we want to be further back. This will help add depth. Starting to come together. Okay, now let's try turning off the sketch layer and seeing how it looks. Not bad. I don't think we even really need the sketch layer anymore at this point. The only thing I might do later is, before I spend too much time on the background, I'll eventually go back and maybe do some more overlap because these branches seem kind of bare at the moment. But let's go ahead and add color to the Anhinga. Here's how we do that. I go above all my other layers, add a new layer, and I go to multiply. Now what multiply is going to do is it's going to take the color that I paint and apply it so that you can still see the lines and everything through it. It makes it very transparent, but it also darkens whatever color I choose. So I want to go somewhere kind of light to start. I'll aim for the beak first. I'm going to save because I think Photoshop is acting up. There we go. Ooh, and before I forget, I'm going to control click my outline, my silhouette that I made originally. This is another good reason not to paint directly on it in the first place, but to use other layers on top so that we never damage the silhouette and we can always come back to it. So I'll press Control H to hide it so we don't see those marching ants anymore. And I'll start painting. Now most of this beak area is going to be yellow. There's even a hint of yellow up around the eye. Is there yellow anywhere else? Maybe over here. Just a hint. All right. And now I can come in and use some of the other colors in his face. And Hinga's are actually colored very interestingly. I think I'll start with the bright green. Shrink it down. Start coloring in. There's that green. Mm. There we go. And it's also got kind of a bluish green. They both kind of blend together. Okay. And then the red of the eye. It's kind of like a dark red. Go a little brighter than that, see how that looks. Okay. Now these colors are not going to be perfect right from the start. What we're going to do is we're actually going to put layers on top of this to refine some of the color choices. But first, we've got to get some of these other colors on the head taken care of, like the brown feathers on the face. All right, we've got the main color blocked in. So now we come in and we do our final refining stage.